everyone. Welcome to another edition of Divorce-a-Palooza. Today, we're going to talk to somebody who literally packed her bags after a rocky divorce to move across the country at the request of her ex-husband. And what she says is that if somebody would have told her she was going to do that, she would have laughed in your face and asked to sip whatever it was you were drinking. Love that. My guest is Darlene Taylor. Darlene is a divorce co-parenting life and wellness coach. She's been a coach for 4 years, and in her new book, she tells her story that is part memoir and part survival guide. So what we're going to talk about basically today are tips to co-parenting. It's what Darlene learned and what she has to say to other people who are going through a divorce and facing co-parenting. Hi, Darlene.
Hi,
Thank you so much for being on Divorce-a-Palooza.
thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk to everyone.
So when you were telling your story that, there's no way I would move with my ex-husband, why'd you do it?
Um, Gosh, that's a loaded question. But every time people ask me, or every time people say, "I can't believe you moved across the country for your ex," I say I didn't. I moved across the country for my daughter. We had a daughter. We have a daughter, but at the time she was 12. We had been divorced for 10 years, and the divorce started out like most divorces do, not pleasant, right? It was very rough. But she was only 2 when we divorced, and it was really rocky. And so, I wanted us to get to a place where we could co-parent well. That was always my goal, but I didn't see that happening. I didn't know when or how we were going to get there. But so we kind of muddled our way through. And as we were kind of going, we, went from sort of like just being kind of cool and cordial to a little bit more friendly. And as the years went by, we kind of fell into this kind of weird new friendship, which I was really happy about. And so about 10 years after we divorced, he kind of reaches out to me and says, "Hey," so we were in Cincinnati, Ohio, and says, "Hey, I've got this amazing job opportunity in California and I really want to take it, but I don't want to leave our daughter, Sammy." He's like, "Would you consider moving?" And I'm like, that's a big ask. Like, I had a great life. I had a life, a career, wonderful friends. I loved my home. I had been there for, 18 years or something at that point. And I'm like, no, why would I leave? Like, that's crazy. And so I had to just kind of really think about it and think about what was best for her. And that's what the book is called. It's not about us. And that's really been my um kind of my mantra, as we're going through this co-parenting thing. It's not about us. This is not about us. It's not about our relationship. It's not about what went wrong. This is about her and what's best for her and how are we going to work together to make sure that we raise a healthy human, because that's our job.
Okay, now, Darlene, weren't you scared when you were moving, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm uprooting my whole life. I'm taking so much of a risk. What if I hate it there? What was going through your mind?
I think a little bit different than a lot of people in that I have moved a lot. So I did have that kind of under my belt. California is the 10th state that I've lived in. So I've moved around a little bit, but this was the first time that I've never moved I wasn't really moving with a partner, right? Where he and I weren't living together, and I didn't know anybody in LA, and I work for myself. So I didn't have a job or a community that I was going to be attached to. A lot of my moves had been, going to undergrad or going to grad school or moving for a job or moving with him when we moved, before, and his other jobs. And so this was the first time that I was just sort of moving on my own, and it was really scary. But what I really thought was that, what she needs most is to have two stable parents that she has access to and can continue to build a relationship with and be supported by on a continuous basis. That was the most important thing. And
I
so,
mean, I was just gonna say it sounds so selfless. I love it, and I really admire what you did. Now,
thank you.
when you tell me about the 10 years that you guys were cool to each other, that it was just a cordial relationship, you couldn't be friends, sounds like there was a lot of resentment there. Do you wish you would have had a coach or somebody to talk to help speed it up so it didn't take 10 years?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, definitely, and I think I would say it took about 5 for us. I'd say the first 5 were pretty rocky, where it was just a lot of anxiety, and that was the part that I wish didn't take so long, because this is a person that you're going to have to continue to work with, and it's not just until your kids are 13 that or until your kids are 18, that's what I really want people to understand. It doesn't end when they graduate from high school. This is You are their parents forever, and you are going to have to be in the same room and share these major life moments in your child's life with this person who might no longer be your romantic partner, but they will always be your parenting partner, always. And so you have to figure out how to coexist with, at the bare minimum, coexist. Grand goals, it would be great if you could be friends. And I recognize that that is not the road for everybody, and that's not the route for everyone. And I say that in my book, like, this might not work for everyone. If you've got, there's a lot of circumstances where this would be really difficult to do. But I think what I've seen in my personal life, what I've seen in my professional life as a therapist before I was a coach, is that most couples, most families are not, a narcissistic, horrible, abusive. Most of the time, you just have two hurting people who want to do what's best for their kid, and they're not quite sure how to move forward. And that's where a co-parenting coach can help, because what you have to do is make sure that you're working on, honoring that space that you're in, because divorce is hard and you grieve, you have to. But in honoring that, but doing that over here and figuring out, okay, we're still a family, even though it's not the family that I wanted. We're still a family, and we've got to figure out how this new version of our family is going to function. How are we going to work together to make sure our kids is okay?
Okay, so that was my next question. Can you get into a little bit more specifically the work that a co-parenting coach will do to help you move from this place of resentment and anger and thinking, I just can't even look at him right now, to almost, I'm not saying being fake.
Right.
Not asking people listening to be fake, but to just get to a place where you've risen above the
Yes, the high road.
resentment
The high road.
completely. And that's not easy.
It's not, and it takes work, and it is constant work. I mean, my daughter's 18 now, and there are still moments that I'm like, feel like I'm gonna bite a hole through my tongue sometimes, and he and I are on great terms. And there's
Uh-huh.
still times that I feel that way. But I think what I talk to co-parents about is separating the partner from the parent. Because most of the time, in most circumstances, you looked at this person at one point and thought, this is who I want to create a life with. This is who I want to co-parent with. So you had to have seen some good qualities in this person, right? And so I help people to try to get back to that, looking at, what does this person do as a parent, and focus on those things. What are they bringing to your child's life? Focusing on understanding the and respecting the role that this co-parent has in your life. You have to understand that one parent can't be everything to a child, and under the best of circumstances, they are able to have two of you, because each parent is going to bring something to the table that the other one can't, and really respecting that and nurturing that, and showing your child that you nurture that. In the book, I talk about four pillars of co-parenting, which are mutual respect, trust, flexibility, and consistency. And so we talk a lot about, in the coaching with parents, we talk a lot about those four pillars of co-parenting, understanding that life happens. And so while you want to try to provide as much consistency as you can, not just in your home, but across households if you can, that's going to, bode really, really well. But you also have to understand that, life happens, and be flexible, because when you're not, the people that suffer are your children, right? They're the ones who lose out when you're just going to go, no, this is my day, and this is what it's supposed to be, and this is how it's going to go. And, yes, are you within your rights to do that? Absolutely. But what is that, who does that hurt, and who does that really benefit? And I think it's, that flexibility piece is really, really important. And that takes a while to work out, because I think what happens, at least what happened with us, is that I was the one who was being really, really flexible at the beginning, and he was not being as flexible. And I kind of felt like I was being taken advantage of, like I was always the one who was doing the bending. And so it took a while for us to get to a space where we both understood that there's going to be flexibility needed on both sides. And
And
ideally, it would be great if you could sit down and have conversations with your parenting partner. I try not to say ex. I always try to say parenting partner, because that's where you are presently. Like, and that's the relationship that you're trying to build. So it's, I think, like the subconscious thing that is reminding you that this person is my partner. and partnerships work well and work best when you're working together. So
I love it. I love the wording is very important. But what I was going to ask you is, do you feel like coaching is almost like a training? So what you're doing is you're almost going to school to learn how to develop patterns that are going to be healthy and take you through the rest of your co-parenting journey with your
100%.
ex. Mhm.
100%, because like I said, you will still have to deal with this person, and, there are gonna be graduations and weddings and birthdays and all of these events, and you
Grandchildren. Mhm.
grandchildren, and you don't want your children to be managing you. Like, that's the worst position that you can put them in. On your child's wedding day, you don't want their thoughts on that day to be, "Gosh, how am I gonna keep mom and dad apart because they can't stand to be around each other?" That's the last thing they should be thinking about. And I
Absolutely.
tell people, I'm like, "Grow up. You grow up. You guys are your parents. You need to grow up. I don't care if your children are adults. You're still the parents, and you need to act like it. Stop making them parent you because you guys can't get it together."
And here's the difference between talking to your girlfriends and talking to someone like you, Darlene. If somebody talks to their girlfriends and they say, "Oh, grow up," they're going to say, "Well, how do you know? You're happily married." If they talk to you, Darlene, you lived this, you went through it. And so you have the right to say to someone, grow up because you had to grow up too.
Yeah, and I
Same
I
with me.
see what happens when you don't, like, I've seen that personally in my
Mhm.
personal life with people that I know, but I've seen that professionally. I've worked with parents, and, and I've seen the damage that it does to their kids when they can't get it together, but I've also seen the toll that it takes on you, and I tell people, like, if you can't get outside of yourself and realize that it's not about you and do it for your kids, then fine, be selfish and protect your own peace. Fine. If that's what we're gonna focus on is you, then do what you need to do to protect your own peace. How horrible is that to carry that around, that just angst and frustration, and just it's so stressful to be in that space with this person that you have to deal with on a regular basis. I was so happy when we got to a place where I didn't freak out and like feel this like immediate anxiety every time I saw his name on my phone. Like, I remember the moment that I saw his name on my phone. I picked it up and I was like, "Oh, hi." And I hung up the phone and I was like, "Oh my gosh." That was the
That's
first time.
very empowering,
Yes.
peaceful. It shows acceptance. It's
Yeah.
like you feel like you're healthy. Okay,
Yeah.
we only have a couple more minutes, but I
Yeah.
had to just touch on a couple of nuggets from your book where you offer co-parenting wisdom, and then we don't have time to go through all of them. But tell me about this. You talk about the surprising lesson you can learn from a boyfriend's ex-wife. That's kinda cool. What we could have done a whole show on just that.
Yes. It's
Tell me
it's
about that.
about giving your children permission to let other people love them and to let other people in their lives. I was dating someone and our relationship was getting pretty serious. His daughters were 9 and 11 at the time, and their mom wanted to meet me before I met them. And at first I was like, "Who does she think she is? She doesn't have to co-sign on your new relationship." And then I
Mhm.
thought, "You know what? This woman wants to know who's going to be around her children, and she has that right." And so we met and had coffee, and she was lovely, and under any other circumstances, I left that coffee thinking under any other circumstances, we would probably be friends. But, there was a lot of things going on, but the lesson that I learned and the thing that she did, the biggest gift that she gave me is she left that coffee and she went to the girls who I'd talked to on the phone but had not met in person and said, "I just met Darlene. You guys are gonna love her. She's really sweet. She's really nice." So she gave them permission to open their hearts to me, and even though I'm not with their dad anymore, they're 21 and 23. They still call me their bonus mom. They just came to visit me. We are still very, very close. I'm now really good friends with their mom. But
I really like that woman a
it's
lot.
it's beautiful. Like, I have told her I get choked up when I talk about it, but that was the biggest gift that she could have ever given me, and to the girls as well, because it made them feel like they weren't having to choose, and they weren't betraying their mom if they liked me, right? And
And
it gave
that is
them
how
permission.
kids grow up to be emotionally healthy and grow up to have good relationships of
Yeah,
their own.
exactly. So
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, we're totally out of time, but I have to ask you this. What's the one thing children of divorce don't want you to say?
anything at all negative about the other parent, that does damage that you will never be able to undo. They
And
personalize it, they feel like you're talking about a piece of them. If they know you hate their parent, they feel like you hate a piece of them, and that's damage that you can't undo.
even if they know you're right and they can see it also, they don't
Yep.
want to hear it. I'm so
Oh,
guilty of that. And so
hard.
anyone who's
Really hard.
watching, if you've done it, don't worry about it. Just try not to do it anymore. Same with
That's right.
me. I
Right.
I'm not gonna pretend and be all high and mighty and say that
Right.
I've never done it.
No, exactly, exactly. It's just it's hard, it's very hard, especially early on, especially when there's, all kinds of things that could happen, and it's hard to do, but that is the best thing that you can do, and that's why I encourage people, get into therapy, start working on your own acceptance of what's going on and work through those things so that you can be the best parent that you wanna be.
Darlene, thank you so much. I have so enjoyed this conversation,
Thank
and I
you.
really
Yes, it's
appreciate your
great.
being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Tell my listeners and people watching the best way to reach you if they wanna have a consult and go to you as a coach.
Yeah, you can reach me on my website, darlenetaylor.com. And that tells you a little bit about me and about the book and about the coaching services that I offer. I have an Instagram at Darlene Taylor that I'm trying to be a little bit more active there. But yeah, the best way to reach me is just darlenetaylor.com. And my email is darlene at darlenetaylor.com. So I would love to, yeah, I offer free consultations. So I would love to talk with you, answer any questions that you might have, and yeah, go from there.
And you can also find Darlene in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling, which is divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.